Nick, let's start with you. What do you think of Captain America: Brave New World?
It was exactly what I was assuming it was going to be. There was not a hope. There was not a dream. I was just assuming we'd sit there. I would eat all of Annie's popcorn, enjoy it, walk away, and probably never think about it again. I think the movie, you can definitely tell it was a bit cobbled together. I think it stood on its own 2 feet. I think it tells a story. Is it a story that I'm particularly interested in watching again? Not really. But we had some fun banter back and forth. We got to see Harrison Ford chewing up scenery as Thunderbolt Ross. And we'll talk about his performance and his portrayal of this character probably later when we get into the plot. But overall, I enjoyed it. And I'm interested to see where it's going to rank.
Andy Cortez.
I didn't like this movie very much. I thought it's what I expected, and I was still a little bit disappointed in that. Like, I wasn't expecting a whole lot, and I was still kind of bummed out leaving the theater. And I think the final sequences with the Red Hulk chase action stuff, I was like, finally, like I'm feeling a thrill. This feels cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily feeling that like I thought I'd be in the air combat sequences. Yeah, I thought that would be like an easy win for me. And just, I don't know, I wasn't super into those sequences, but the sequences with Red Hulk I thought were really like scary, just because anytime, I mean, even in the first Avengers when he's chasing after Black Widow, I feel that, oh my God, this is fucking terrifying. This guy's unstoppable. And to see this goddamn red guy just jumping for miles, it's like, oh man.
Like when he takes off and you see him just jump, you're like, oh no.
And it's like, there's no way he's going to catch Sam Wilson, Captain America, inside of a flying suit. It's like, oh, he's getting there.
Yeah.
Like, I thought all that stuff was like really damn awesome. And that's where the CG also happened to look the best. And the rest of the movie didn't look as good and as convincing as those, as the sequences there, except the green screen at the end. Good Lord. Holy shit. The cherry blossom, like,
Yeah, a lot of that was real. It just doesn't look good.
Oh, no. A lot of it was real. There was one particular shot, though, that I think was a reshoot.
Are you talking like where...
it was dead on. He was talking to him.
He's looking up at Red Hulk.
So obviously green screen.
That was a really bad shot,
like, because it kept cutting back and forth between green screen and the real shot, and the lighting was just so, like, I don't even know if they had the reference shots in the other one to do in this one. It was just very bad. It was arguably the worst green screen I've seen in a movie in a very long time. Not because the green screen itself was bad, just because the composite of the plate and all that stuff just looks so off.
I think when I dial it all back, what the story of this movie is doing, I think is super cool and interesting. Like, I think if they would have executed it, I would have been like, that's an awesome little movie we just saw. That didn't need to happen, but it was still enjoyable because the writing was great and the character work was great. And I, unfortunately, a lot of that was lacking. But I think just the whole story of god dang the leader from the first Hulk movie making a return, and granted, he looked really goofy and it was hard to not like be like, oh, this looks kind of weird on screen. But I just love his line delivery so much. Like, even when he would pop him on screen and then you would just hear like, Captain America. I'm like, God, this guy's awesome. I want more of this. It just felt like they were trying to go for that Civil War vibe of Baron Zemo tearing up the Avengers, this dude trying to cause his own chaos. And I think if written and directed by another team and maybe not dealing with a bunch of reshoots, we would have had a really awesome movie. And it just kind of largely fell flat for me, unfortunately. How about you, Tim?
There's a negativity around this one that I personally don't quite understand by people that have seen the movie. You know, like some people here and even just like on the internet and a lot of things I've seen that I'm like, did we watch the same thing or are we just even in the same place? And it's funny because I'm really kind of like arguing in my mind about like IGN gave it a 5. And I'm like, this is not a 5. What are you talking about? I'd give it a 6.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's funny for me where it's like, I would not recommend watching this movie in theaters. I think this is easily one of the, like, you can watch it later, but like, it's a solid movie. Like, I don't think this movie does anything bad. I don't think there's anything bad about this movie. It's just not really that interesting. And it has a lot of like interesting ideas that I don't think they take any of them far enough. I think that the president storyline is very interesting, and the leader, how intriguing it all is of how everything's being played. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff here, but it reminds me a lot of Age of Ultron, where it very much is a setup movie for where we're going in the future. But the difference is Age of Ultron had Tony Stark and it had Steve Rogers and it had so many like great things going for it too. Whereas this, it's like, you know, Anthony Mackie, I really like him. I really like the character of Falcon. Having him as a lead with another Falcon and all this stuff, I'm like, I'm here for it, but I'm here for it in the same way that I've said this a couple times now in the last couple Marvel movies, but this one really feels this way. I read comic books. Like I read the big event comic books and then I read a bunch of the in-betweens. I don't read them all, but this is just an in-between comic book. And a lot of the stuff they set up here will pay off in the future. I think they did a good job of taking a bunch of threads that have been set up in the last handful of movies and moved those stories forward, or at least kind of connected them. So it's like, okay, I see where we're going to go with this. And as a movie, it told a story. I just think that this movie, its biggest issue for me is the timing of it coming out is very unfortunate. And it reminds me a lot of Black Widow, where we finally get a Black Widow solo movie. It takes place after Civil War, but it comes out after Endgame. No one cares.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, and the movie wasn't good enough to stand on its own and be like, oh my God, we see this whole, what a great send off to Natasha, like all this stuff. It was fine.
Yeah,
it was fine movie, like totally fine. I put this somewhere around there where it's like, yeah, it's totally fine. But the problem is with this, it's like, it's a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. Already not anyone's favorite MCU movie. I like it. I don't think it's a trash fire, but like for it to be a 17-year later, whatever it is, sequel to that movie, because I do think this feels more a sequel to that than a sequel to the Captain America movies.
Oh, definitely.
Anyone going in expecting Winter Soldier vibes, you're not getting them. You're simply not.
They wanted you to.
If you watch the trailer.
You sure didn't get them. Yeah.
But it is more, I think, Incredible Hulk vibes of that more grounded political thriller stuff, and they succeed there. But my problem is, in the same way that Natasha dying, that felt weird, I thought that Harrison Ford was fine as Thunderbolt Ross. I have no complaints about him whatsoever, but he doesn't feel like Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
Like, making this movie and having Red Hulk be as important as he is and all that after William Hurt died just feels so bizarre. I feel like this movie's, especially in its place right now in Phase 5 and the MCU and with Fantastic Four looming and Doomsday and Secret Wars and all that, this really is let's just glue things together. To Marvel's credit, I think they know that. This is the first movie to not start with the Marvel Studios fanfare. And when that happened, I was like, they fucking know. Cool. I hope Thunderbolts doesn't have it. And I hope that Fantastic Four brings it back and it hits, and that's the new jump off point. It's the first steps towards all of us being like, hey, we as a community want to be excited about these movies again and want to like them, and they're delivering and all of that stuff is there. We're not there yet. This movie doesn't do that. But for people like me that nerd the fuck out over the leader being back and so many other little plot threads like being revived here, I'm like, I'm a fan of the syndication, serialized storytelling of Marvel. And I think that if you are that way, you're going to enjoy this movie. I just don't think you need to see it in theaters.
I would agree with you. I think that is one of those where if I hadn't seen this in theaters and this popped on Netflix or Disney Plus, I'd be like, oh, and I would delight in watching it for a night and enjoy it. And because to me, we all talked about how this was giving us Winter Soldier vibes, but I don't think any of us thought it was going to hit on that level. At least I didn't set that expectation internally for myself. So when I went in, I was like,
well, we were already kind of stung pretty badly by Secret Invasion, which was kind of going for espionage.
Well, thankfully,
this goes
I think
all the way
this
to the
is
top, sort of thing.
a massive cut above that, at least,
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as just sheer enjoyment level for some of the action sequences. But yeah, I think I kind of went in and was just kind of expecting it to be around a 5 or a 6. And when it hit, I was like, cool, that's exactly what I thought it was. A get in, get out. I will agree with you, though, that I just don't, I love Harrison Ford. And I will always support Harrison Ford. And somehow that man winds up shirtless at the end of every movie, and he still looks better than me. But I just don't think I went back and scrubbed through a little bit of Black Widow just to kind of familiarize myself with that, because I think that's a close analog to this.
Mm-hmm.
And watching William Hurt, and he has sort of a reserved, like a more quiet, sort of powerful presence, whereas Harrison Ford in this is kind of frantic the entire time, and obviously that's for some plot reasons, which everyone understands why, because he's trying to hide the fact that he's got this rage inside of him that he doesn't understand. But I do think that William Hurt I think he would have elevated this a little bit more were he able to be in it.
This episode's brought to you by Rocket Money. Missing out on a show that everyone's talking about isn't an option for people like me. So many of us are constantly signing up for this streaming service or that streaming service, and then a few months later realize that we're still paying for the service long after we finish the show. Rocket Money has helped multiple members of Kind of Funny learn that they were still paying for things that they totally didn't even realize. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel all of your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny today. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. This episode is brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. Y'all know I've been outside in the sun a lot playing Pokemon Go, and it is such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I'm out and about looking all dope. Exclusively for you, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal. Head to shadyrays.com and use code FUNNY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Again, go to shadyrays.com, use code FUNNY to get 35% off polarized sunglasses. shadyrays.com, promo code FUNNY. This episode's brought to you by BetterHelp. When you are having serious conversations with the people in your life, we often hear them talk about red flags that we should avoid. But what if we focus more on looking for green flags in friends and partners? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify green flags, actively practice them in your relationships, and embody the green flag energy yourself. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, and it serves over 5 million people worldwide. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. BetterHelp.com/kindafunny. And obviously, I totally understand
He's dead.
Yeah, I get where we're at. But for a movie that had so many reshoots, so many things around it, it's like for the movie we got to be so Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross heavy. For me, what I think is weird about it is 2 major things. We always talk about, is the general audience going to be confused and whatever? And I think that we've learned so much and we're so far past that where it's like the general audience understands superheroes. They understand there's multiple Spider-Men. They understand, you get it, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. However, I am willing to bet that the majority of people, even ones that, not the people that fucking do review shows about Marvel movies.
Right.
I'm talking about the people that have seen every one of the movies once. You know, they keep up they call themselves fans of these movies. I am willing to bet that the majority of them, by the time they finish the movie, aren't going to realize the leader is that one guy from Incredible Hulk.
That's a stretch.
Does that matter? Not necessarily, but
kind of does.
It kind of feels a little bit weird that
they had that one flashback, right?
But I don't think they did enough flashbacks.
I mean, there was like literally 1 second in the Hulk where you see him go, and then that's it. You never really see him. They don't come back to him, right?
And it's like, you know, this is getting ahead just a little bit, but it's like they play the Mr. Blue music and all that. But I'm like, that's hilarious. For fucking nerds.
That's Mr. Blue
shit.
Emails, right? When they were going back, Mr. Blue, Mr. Green.
And so it's like,
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, remember when he was corresponding with him.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff's really cool. But I just think that in terms of the character in this movie, they introduce him well enough that like he just feels like a new character. It feels like they're retconning him into, but what if he was there before, as opposed to, he was. But even bigger than that, Thunderbolt Ross is a character that has been in more MCU movies than the majority of Marvel characters, period, right?
Yeah.
Like William Hurt's Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, he's popped up a
lot. I am
lot.
willing to bet that the majority of people that leave this movie are not going to realize that guy's that guy.
Why not?
Because we get one flashback with him with the mustache. I don't think that goes hard enough. Yeah. I don't think that and he doesn't act exactly the same enough to be like, oh, this is the guy that put the Sokovia Accords in motion. Like,
he doesn't act like him at all.
And that to me is, I think, the craziest thing about this movie being released at the time that it is. And hey, going forward, we'll have Harrison Ford and maybe that will just change it and who the hell cares.
Yeah.
But I just think that for the amount riding on this movie, for that to be the case, and this is the new Captain America movie, and we haven't even really talked about Captain America.
Yeah.
I also just want to throw out, not even talking about what the universe is doing or anything like that. I think just in that movie, watching characters converse with each other, I thought the performances were real bad. I thought that was
Captain America: Brave New World.
In this movie, I thought there was just a lot of bad acting, and maybe it's because you can only act so well when the line of dialogue you're given is just not good enough. And I don't know what to blame it more on, but man, there was just a lot of moments where I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like, I don't like this.
For me, I think it comes down to chemistry, right? And I think one of the reasons why Winter Soldier worked was because I think Chris Evans and ScarJo have really good chemistry. Obviously, they've been in a bunch of movies together. They know each other. They have that time to build that rapport. To me, I think the standout actors in this, I love Anthony Mackie. I think he helped carry the film. I think Harrison Ford did a good job, and I think the actor that plays Isaiah Bradley, I thought every sequence.
Carl Lumbly.
Carl Lumbly, thank you. I think every sequence between Carl Lumbly and Anthony Mackie, I was like, I want more of this. This, to me, is the heart of this movie. In fact, Isaiah Washington, as the character, has, in my opinion, the best beat of... sorry, Bradley, what did I say? Washington?
Isaiah Bradley.
I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy. It's Isaiah Washington. Sorry, Isaiah Bradley. Has a lot... He has, in my opinion, like one of the best moments of action in this when he's breaking out and he takes that amazing table and just hurls him behind him.
Awesome.
I'm reminded that he is a super shoulder and he still has that power within him, which is cool. I think we'll probably diverge on this one. I really don't like the dynamic between Cap and the new Falcon. I think a lot of their back and forth was trite. I don't think they have the chemistry that I want them to have as a buddy cop sort of action thriller kind of thing.
I didn't like it for the majority of the movie until the final scene. Legitimately, when he's in the hospital and they're making the jokes about Miami and this and that, like that was the only time where I was actually smiling and be like, oh man, I kind of wish I felt this way the whole time. But I agree with you where a lot of their back and forth, whether they're at the gym or whether they're kind of just in that lab and he's like, come on, we gotta go. And he's like, oh, should I pack food or what? Like,
and again, I think this boils down to the writing of that particular character, because the Joaquin Torres character could be very interesting and as a sort of like, hey, I want to learn from you, that could be very, very cool. But it's just unfortunate. It's impossible to not compare that dynamic to the Cap Bucky dynamic or the Cap Anthony Mackie dynamic, where you have two sort of like, different characters coming at this from a different spot, but they have common ground and they have a different dynamic together on screen. Whereas I just think the Joaquin Torres character I don't think they gave him enough meat on the bone to really flesh that character out so that I cared about the back and forth between them.
I mean, people aren't going to like me saying this, but fuck it. I'm saying it because I stand by it. I mean, we're talking about a side character having a side character. And like, we have not seen Sam Wilson be Captain America in a way that proves to me, oh, you lead anything. And this is 2 years after, storyline wise, 2 years after Falcon and Winter Soldier. Doesn't really feel like he's doing a great job as Captain America. It just kind of feels like he's just a guy that's wearing the suit now. And they don't dive deep enough into the storytelling of that in this movie. I feel like so many of the storylines, they go 70% of the way, not enough for it to like, oh, we're getting somewhere. And like, and the show does a good job of it, I think.
With the one with him and Bucky?
Yeah, of dealing with like him questioning that, am I good enough and whatever. I just feel like when we just have to deal with the realities of things, and it's been X amount of years since we've even seen this character on screen, to have this be the first step towards that, and like having him, he still feels more like Falcon to me than he does Captain America, because we haven't seen him have to lead anybody,
Yeah.
And it's still just right now, it just feels like he has a side partner that is just another Falcon, And I feel like with that,
a lot of Falcons.
I don't have so many issues with like their back and forth, because I do think that character so far is just, hey man, I'm the young hotshot, whatever, and like all my dialogue is just kind of like cool bro supporting you type stuff. Like I'm fine with that because that's where we're at so far. It's just kind of a bummer that that's where we're at. But yeah, I feel like that's not this movie's fault necessarily. It's more just everything.
Before we get into the plot, I want to talk about just action sequences in general. Because I thought that, with the exception of a couple, I'm with Andy on this, where I feel like they were a bit lackluster. And I feel like the thing that really kind of started boring me right off the rip was when he has to fight hand to hand. I just didn't particularly care for any of that. I didn't feel like any of it. Some of it was decent enough choreographed, but I don't know why. I don't think I could have put it into words until I saw the Isaiah Bradley character take that fucking table and hurl it. And I was like, right. it's much more fun to watch someone that took the serum than it is
Yeah.
to watch someone who didn't
I'm
take the
right-
serum.
Dude, I'm right
And
there with you.
I hate to say that because I know that goes against the grain of what the movie is about.
No, it doesn't.
But
though.
at the same
I'm
time,
with you.
it's just kind of boring to watch the character who doesn't have that superpower in a superhero movie.
and they don't give a good reason for why he doesn't.
really
they try,
don't.
they pretend,
Take
but they
the
don't have a good
serum,
reason.
dude.
I think there is also just like, look, it's a movie. To complain about this is so stupid anyway for me, but like, it's hard for me to get past that mental block of when Anthony Mackie is fighting the really, really large dude and he's like, oh, I'm beat your ass. He's like, all right, let's fucking fight.
And then he just kind of
But
ends
in
him.
my mind, I go, what if you just put two other big guys in? Like, he's dead.
Yeah, he's
like,
dead.
He's just,
Yeah.
And I'm totally right there with Nick where when we see Isaiah Bradley doing shit, I'm like, oh man, I wish.
Like, I want him to
wish-
get suited up and start fucking people
Yeah,
up.
man. I wish
That's
Anthony
way
Mackie
cooler.
were superpowered.
Yeah, I do. There's literally a point where Andy leaned over to me. We'll get there in the plot. But Andy just made it to the perfect beat, and he goes, "Why don't they have guns?"
When they're flying on the ocean and the missiles are flying, it's like we saw Falcon flying around with the Uzis at one
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now they're like doing
Yeah,
weird
where does
gadgetry.
guns
It's
go?
like,
Well,
why
he's
don't they have guns?
He's got the shield, which is great, but you could give him like a pistol or something. You know what I mean?
It's just I don't know. I was like, why don't they should have weapons? I don't know.
I will say I didn't dislike any action scene in this movie. I didn't love any. I'm not going to rewatch this movie in theaters. I think
Yeah.
that's very telling for me and how invested
That's
I am in
crazy.
these things.
I'm not gonna
crazy
rewatch
thought.
this movie
I'm not-
again.
Like, probably not until
Yeah.
years from now when we
Yeah.
do another rewatch. But yeah, no, I'm with you there. But like, I don't think that any of the action was bad. None of that stuff really got in the way of it. I just nothing to write home about. But
There's some definite cool moments where you wish the whole fight was that. I think of me and Nick audibly reacting to each other, of reacting to flying over the ocean and him telling Red Wing or whatever the fuck his little bird is to use the shield to protect him from behind, to
Yeah.
fly behind him. That's like, oh, that's cool and creative. I
Yeah.
want more of that. There's there was a couple of cool moments where he does do the flips to use the wings to like hurt people, and it's like, oh, I wish the whole fight had more creativity like that. But at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
a dude.
To me, you start getting to the point, obviously, with the vibranium wings and stuff like that, where we're like, what can we add on top of this to make it somewhat interesting? And some of it was. Like the wing stuff I thought was real cool. When he has to cut through shit, I was like, that's a great visual. We haven't seen something like that in a while. But for the most part, I'm like, man, nothing's. For whatever reason, this movie was missing that one moment in Winter Soldier where Cap's running through the ship and just doming people with the.
I was
the
missing
shield.
every moment from Winter
Yeah,
Soldier. Again,
it's
this is a
missing it.
a sequel to the Incredible Hulk. Everybody, in every way, like in
And-
quality as well.
To speak positively about it, the Hulk sequence to me was terrifying. That was
I
awesome.
loved it.
I thought it was great.
I
and I
loved
think
it.
that the power of the movie was, oh shit, he has to figure out how to take this whole character on. He doesn't have the serum. Even if he did, he'd probably get the shit kicked out of him. But whatever. He doesn't have it. We even have that one moment of levity as the fight's going where he's like, don't take the serum. Whatever, Bucky. Never listen to your ass ever again. That's great. So that shit worked.
I missed the Bucky scene. I was heading to the restroom when that scene started. I was like,
Oh,
and I saw Cameron Kennedy in the chat say that one scene with Bucky was good. And I'm like, that's the only that's one that I missed.
It was good. But it was.
it's very Thor in Age of Ultron. Of I gotta go to a cave real quick. Let's set up the next movie. But like, it was good though.
I'll wait to we'll get there and you all tell me what happened, right?
Sounds
But as I'm crossing by everybody to get into hit the staircase and go to the restroom, Bucky pops up and he's like, "Hey, on your left," or whatever the fuck. And Joey like does hand movements and leg movements in her movie theater seat. And Joey's psyched as all hell,
Of
right?
course.
I go to the restroom, I pee. I come back, Joey's crashed out. Legitimately, like as I walk back up the stairs, Joey's just like eyes closed.
That is so.
Is
funny.
Joey the new Mike? Because Mike stayed awake
Well, there
the
weren't
entire
noises.
time.
I didn't hear any noises.
That's fair enough.